Step into the dark shadows of Cleveland's Mount Pleasant neighborhood as we uncover the frightening real crime story of Anthony Sowell, the Cleveland Strangler. It's a story about darkness, abuse, and the decline of a neighborhood into terror. Come with us on this unsettling trip through the events that engulfed a whole town, eventually leading to the discovery of a house of horrors on Imperial Avenue. Prepare to be enthralled by a story that goes into the depths of human depravity and the fortitude of those who survive. This is the terrifying truth behind the Cleveland Strangler, and it's a story you'll never forget. Anthony Sowell was born in 1959 on Page Avenue, and his life was a horrific story of abuse and violence. His difficult childhood threw a heavy fog over his early years. Anthony's childhood, which was tormented by continuous abuse and daily confrontations with violence and sexual assault, laid the framework for the horrifying tragedy that would unfold over the next few decades. His childhood wounds would alter his personality, sending him down a dark road that would eventually envelop a whole community in Cleveland's Mount Pleasant neighborhood. His mother and grandmother, who exposed him to unspeakable brutality, formed Anthony's early years. The traumas of that harsh environment continued with him when he sought an escape at 19 by entering the Marine Corps. The military provided structure and discipline for 7 years, garnering him plaudits for his outstanding performance. However, when he left the Marines in the mid-1980s, the lack of that controlled atmosphere laid the groundwork for a downhill spiral. When Anthony returned to East Cleveland, he was unemployed, struggling with addiction and filled with rage. He returned to a low-income neighborhood, and East Cleveland was undergoing renovation, aiming to remove the scars of its history. In 1989, Anthony's inner darkness was unleashed in a brutal crime that foreshadowed the horrors to come. A pregnant woman ended up in his grasp, tied up, gagged, and brutally attacked. 3 ladies from the same street were discovered slain, and their cases remain unresolved to this day. Anthony, who was arrested for rape and kidnapping, later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in jail. The jail term provided a short reprieve from Anthony's spiraling turmoil. Psychologists examined him many times and assured authorities he presented no immediate threat. However, as the mid-1990s neared, Anthony's grip on addiction intensified. He returned to East Cleveland after his release in 2005, settling into a house on Imperial Avenue. Imperial Avenue, formerly a residential neighborhood, was now the scene of a series of disappearances that had gone undiscovered by police for far too long. Anthony assimilated into the community, garnering the trust of his neighbors by assuming a genial demeanor. They didn't know that the man they thought was friendly would become known as the Cleveland Strangler. As Anthony settled into his new home, the neighborhood detected an odd odor radiating from it. Complaints piled in, with neighbors worried about a horrible odor suggestive of death. The complaints reached City Hall, prompting inspectors to look into the source of the odor. Despite attempts to blame a local sausage shop, the actual tragedy within Anthony's residence remained hidden. The year 2007 was a watershed moment in Anthony's life. A tumultuous relationship with a lady named Lori drove him to a crack addiction. Lori departed to get away from the drugs, but Anthony stayed on Imperial Avenue. With Lori's departure, a trigger appeared to be pulled, unleashing a wave of violence that would take the lives of defenseless women in the neighborhood. On November 5, 2009, 2 of Anthony Sowell's 11 victims were identified. Sowell's known victims were all African American women, either slim or morbidly fat, and all, save one, mothers. 7 of the fatalities were aged 44 to 53. 3 were in their 30s, and 1, the youngest, was 25. Kim Yvette Smith, 44, was the first recognized victim. Her family reported her missing in 2009. Sowell's backyard was where her corpse was discovered. LaShonda Long, the 25-year-old victim, went missing in August 2008. Her skull was discovered in Sowell's cellar, wrapped in a bucket. Tonya Carmichael, 53, had gone missing over a year before and was discovered buried in Sowell's backyard, strangled and identified by DNA evidence. Talacia Fortson, 31, had gone missing 5 months before, but her mother finally reported her missing after hearing about the deaths discovered in Sowell's home. 3 additional victims were identified on November 8, 2009. Crystal Dozier, a 38-year-old mother of 7, vanished in May 2007. Her family had taken the initiative to find her after being disappointed with the police inquiry. Imelda Amy Hunter, 47, a beautician and mother of 3, didn't live in the region where her corpse was discovered, but regularly visited. After authorities began collecting remains from Sowell's residence, her relatives reported her missing. Michelle Mason, 45, was last seen in October 2008, and her family reported her missing when police launched an inquiry. In September 2009, Anthony Sowell invited Latundra Billups to join him for a drink at his home. Latundra Billups and Anthony Sowell are in relation. However, the evening took a sinister turn as, after a few drinks, Sowell became enraged, subjecting Billups to a brutal assault involving hits, choking, and rape, leading to her loss of consciousness. On October 29th, the police, armed with an arrest warrant, visited Sowell's residence, but he wasn't present. 2 days later, on October 31st, authorities located and apprehended him. The horrifying revelations came to light as the investigation unfolded, exposing a gruesome scene within Sowell's home. The tragedy didn't stop with the shocking discovery. Sowell's horrible actions included the sexual assault of 3 women, whom he lured to his property with the promise of crack cocaine. Anthony, who eluded capture but was eventually apprehended, completed his murder rampage on Halloween. The reign of terror of the Cleveland Strangler came to an end when he was apprehended while aimlessly strolling the streets, coated in filth and twigs. The subsequent judicial proceedings showed the depths of Anthony's malice. Survivors boldly shared their ordeals, while Anthony endured the consequences of guilt-free. The inescapable decision rang across the courtroom: guilty on 85 counts, including 11 counts of aggravated murder. In the aftermath, the house of horrors that stood as a sad witness on Imperial Avenue was razed, erasing physical proof of the awful atrocities committed within its walls. Following the devastating discoveries on Imperial Avenue, a touching memorial, the Garden of 11 Angels, was erected in 2021 as a permanent tribute to the lives lost because of Anthony Sowell's hatred. Despite Anthony's repeated requests for release from the consequences of his heinous conduct, the legal system refused to offer him respite. A new chapter, however, began in 2021 when Anthony sought treatment for an unidentified fatal ailment. The cloud of secrecy surrounding the source of his illness only contributed to the Cleveland Strangler's ominous image. As the world awaited the end of this heinous story, February 8, 2021 marked the terrible ending. Anthony Sowell died of an unknown ailment, leaving a community to deal with the aftermath. If you found this video as gripping as we did, don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more captivating content. Thank you, and see you again in the next video.